Welcome back to the Special Education Insights podcast. Today we have the amazing Autriel Galloway, and I'm so excited for you to meet her. She has just a bright, beautiful personality and is an amazing special education leader and coach. She refers to herself as what I find quite interesting, an agency activist. So we're definitely going to be diving into that. She is very experienced in supporting students, teachers, and leaders. She focuses on helping people move through their challenges, reconnect with their strengths, and lead, most importantly, with intention. And what I love about her work is that she sits at the intersection between special education, leadership, and personal growth, which, as we all know, is one of my personal favorites. So welcome, Autriel. Thank you so much for coming to spend time with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I know I shared a little bit about you. Can you give us a kind of brief overview of where you started in and how you got into special education, and especially referring to yourself as an agency activist, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah. So I started working in special education in January 2014. I started working for a public charter school here in Houston, Texas. And quick backstory is I was a mid-year hire, so I was hired in November 2013. My campus principal at the time did not, they had three openings available, and she wasn't sure which one she would actually hire me for, but she was very certain that she wanted me on campus. So she just hired me and was like, we'll have you do a bunch of things between November and the end of the semester. And then when we get started in January, we'll let you know exactly what we want you to do. And I'm like, great, because I need a job. So absolutely. So in either right before we left for break, winter break, or January when we came back, she was like, special education is our greatest need. And so I would like to hire you to be our special education teacher. And I was like, sure, why not? Granted, I knew nothing about special education because I was a brand new teacher, just period. And so through the charter schools that I worked for, we have an alternative certification program. So I was able to get certified in my first year of teaching and all of that kind of stuff. And so I worked as a special education teacher from January to May of 2014. In May of 2014, she was like, we would also like for you to lead the special education team. And I was like, why not? And so when I came back in the beginning of the 14-15 school year, I was a special education teacher and the leader of the special education team. And so I led on campus through various special education roles for about 6 years. And then I moved to what is known as our home office, so our district office in the 2020-2021 school year. And I have done district level work for the last 5-6 years. And so now I'm the director of secondary special education for the same charter school system, which I always find interesting because our director at the time when I started, she looked at me one day in my first or second year as being a leader, and she was like, I could see you being the director of our program. And I was like, not today, but okay. When I got the role about 3 years ago, I was like, dang, Jamie said that she could see me being the director, and here I am directing things. And so that is my quick story journey of my career. And so I've been working in special education ever since. And so what I would also add is when I was in school, so in grade school in Tennessee, we had a program called Clue for kids who were gifted and talented. And so many years ago, I was back at home and I found my paperwork because my mom keeps not a bunch of stuff, but enough stuff. And so I was digging through old paperwork and things. And I was like, wait a minute. I had an IEP? And she was like, yes, what did you think the gifted and talented program was? And I was like, I don't know. I literally no clue. And so come to find out, I have had this connection to special education programming, learning, truly my entire life. I started in the gifted and talented program when I was kindergarten, first grade, whatever version of that it could have been at that point. and made my way through it through my entire like school career, and then came to Texas and have essentially done the same thing without even realizing it. So that is my career story. And so to get to the agency activist part, it was very unbeknownst to me, I guess you can say. But to get to the agency activist part, so part of what I do outside of being the director is I'm a leadership coach for new to role special education like campus leaders. And when I say new to role, they are in like year 1 to 3 of their role. And so what oftentimes happens is like a really high performing special education teacher has the opportunity to be promoted into leadership. And leading a team to get to the same results that you got to as an individual contributor is a completely different skill set. And what I have noticed over the course of my career is that when you do not develop those middle management skills, so the skills to manage others toward a particular goal, as well as to like lead yourself and lead others at the same time, you start to experience this sense of like burnout, overwhelm, things of that nature. And in coaching folks, I have helped them understand like, regardless of the system or organization that you work in, you still have agency in how you show up, what these priorities mean on your calendar, how you are building out your time, because that is actually a big skill gap that a lot of the leaders that I've worked with have. It's like when you're a teacher, your time is pretty much like parsed out for you. When you become a campus leader, like you have 8 to 9 hours in the day that you have to figure out how to structure, build, and like keep yourself on the calendar as well as all of the other work. And a lot of times people are not eating lunch. They are running around putting out 1,000 fires because they haven't like built people's capacity to do certain things. And so I work with a lot of the leaders to actually activate their own agency. So how am I leading myself in alignment with my vision and values for myself? And once we like anchor that piece, it's like, okay, now how do I leverage that to then like lead my team effectively so that they are actually doing their work well and I am able to do only the work that I can do as the leader of this team. So that's how we got to agency activist.
I love that. Oh my gosh. It feels like you are very a yes person. You can feel the authority and the agency that you have for yourself and your leadership and wanting to help people. And when I heard you say at the very beginning, they asked you to come in November and then from January to May, and you're like, yes, that sounds good. And now you work for Yes Prep School or you work with Yes Prep, right?
Yeah, and so that is what I do as the director, work at Yes Prep Public Schools. And so at Yes Prep, part of what I do is like we have like SPED managers, and they are the campus level like leaders of their like special education programs. And so I get to coach them, lead them to essentially do the same thing because who I am as a director is the same as I am as like a leadership coach. And so if you're struggling, we're going to figure it out. I'm going to help you figure out what gaps you have, like in your own self leadership, perhaps, or what strengths you can leverage in your own self leadership in order to actually then be able to like get to whatever we said the goals are, but also remember to take care of yourself because you got to do that. So, yeah.
1,000%. I love that. What do you find that you're helping people with, especially when you mentioned about their struggles or if they're feeling stuck? Because I'm sure a ton of teachers come to you. Do you find teachers and students come to you with their stuckness, or is it mostly because you're the director, mostly the teachers that are coming to you? And what does that look like, and how do you support them in that?
Yeah, so in my role, I have mostly FaceTime with the leaders actually. And so when I was on campus, tons of teachers would coming to me all the time with their stuckness. And the thing that I have found, whether it was like the teacher that I was working with on campus or the leader that I work with in like this like district level role, or even in my like leadership coaching of others, is like special education can feel overwhelming to people because you have SDI, accommodations, IEP, modified curriculum, alternate curriculum, behavior plan. Like you have so many things for all of the children. And whether you are dealing with all of the things within a particular IEP for the children, or you have a caseload of kids and you're trying to deal with all of those things, or you have your roster of teachers as the leader and you are trying to help them deal with all of whatever that looks like for their instruction, their implementation of IEPs, what have you. A lot of times it boils down to one, values. Like, are we like talking the same language about what we actually like value and think is important here, and leveraging values in order to influence others to like move toward the goal. Number two, helping people clarify priorities, because everything cannot be a priority, everything cannot be important. And while a lot of times people have a hard time deciphering like what is urgent, what is important, what is a priority, especially one, if they don't have like the special education experience to be able to name, if I push this domino, it'll cascade the others. And so a lot of times I help them first of all, give them permission to step back. And it's like, you're very in the weeds. So let's step back a little bit, take a breath, and look at all of the things that are on the dashboard, whatever that might happen to look like. And then, okay, let's talk through based on safety, based on compliance, based on what is truly non-negotiable to keep the program running or the building running or what have you, like based on whatever criteria we decide to set for naming priorities, what is the actual priority here? And then my follow-up coaching is like, you don't get to add anything else to the list. So what that means is that there is a possibility something will not get done. That is fine. It's okay. We get to choose what is okay to not be done, but something will not get done because everything cannot be a priority. Everything cannot be important. And so once we name that, it's like, okay, now what are the systems that we need to put in place? Whether it is updating calendars, sending the emails, setting up a system that like facilitates follow-up, whatever it happens to be, but it's like, what is the system that we need to put in place in order to make sure that what we said is the priority actually gets done? So that is how I work with, and this honestly worked even with kids. If we were working on like behavior trackers and things like that, it's like we agreed on this. We just together decided this was going to be the thing, and so let's walk through like this a very similar process so that we can get ourselves back on track, so that we are able to actually do what we agreed to do. And if it is hard to do what we agreed to do, then let's talk about that so that if we need to revise it or edit it, we can. That's the agency piece that comes in. It's like you always get to choose. And you don't have to, like, if the plan isn't working the way we initially wrote it, fine, let's make a better plan. But we're not going to just act out or, buck the system or like resist all the time because this feels hard. You get to choose. You have a say so. Let's figure out what that looks like and feels like for you right now to get you to the goal. So, yeah.
I love that. And what's so funny is as I have questions that I was asking you and literally in my head asking you, and you were already answering them. So the fact that I was going to ask you, what do you start with? And we start with clarity, and not everything's a priority. And we find ways to take care of ourselves. So powerful. Because I think, especially as teachers, they're already coming from the mindset of they have to do everything. And then even administration can come in and say, okay, we have to do this, this, and this. And it can feel overwhelming really, really quickly. And how you really offered the clarity that you mentioned. You're like, let's get a clear picture. So I hear you on this stuckness, or I hear you on this overwhelm. Let's get clear on where we are, what we need, and recognize that not everything is a priority. I love that you said that. I can feel the weight release that your teachers must experience when working with you.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of them do say exactly this because, and like I said, like I think everybody wants to do a good job. And I operate with that belief like non-negotiably about our kids, about our teachers, about our leaders. Everybody wants to do a good job. And so if that is what I believe about you, there is something that is creating the barrier between you and the good job, whatever we have said the good job is. And many times it is the simple fact that I have all of this in front of me and I have this much time and I don't know what to do in this much time. And it's like, okay, let me help you, like create that clarity, but also let me release you from the idea that you have to do everything right now. You don't. You do not. And even to your point about like administrators and the feedback sometimes is like I had a coaching conversation with someone the other day who had gotten like different pieces or like types of feedback from different people. And he was like, I feel stuck because all of these people have told me all of these different things, and the things that they are telling me are actually conflicting each other. And I was like, that is fair. And so, and I asked him, I said, one, did you ask clarifying, probing questions? Did you actually say in these conversations, like, hey, I heard so and so from this person, and I heard so and so from this person, and trying to do these two things at the same time, like, actually keeps me stuck? And he said, yes. I said, great. Okay. Now, if you still were not able to get the clarity that you needed through the conversations with the people, then it becomes like our responsibility to kind of figure out, okay, are there themes or trends in what I have heard that I can connect in order to actually like make the clarity that I need for myself? Because sometimes you can ask all the questions in the world, and if the leaders above you are not aligned on what they are wanting to see, their explanations are going to create even more murkiness for you. And so I was like, I'm going to stop asking questions now, and I am going to do the best I can with the information I have. And when you do that, that will at least get you some traction in, if it's not a completely right direction, an almost right direction. So then all you have to do is just pivot just a little bit when people are then giving you even more feedback to like keep moving you down the path. And so he did that, and he was able to like pull out nuggets for himself to say, okay, like this is what I heard. This is what I know about me. And therefore, this is the connection that I'm going to make in order to try to get myself to be able to put one foot in front of the other instead of being stuck and feeling like I'm spiraling, because that also feels terrible. So, yeah.
I love that. You're so solution oriented, which is fantastic in everything that you want in a role in which that you're positioned in. Do you find that your teachers are saying the same thing? Is it necessarily like they're feeling stuck, or is it a lack of time or a lack of clarity? Like, what are their bigger issues that they're coming with? Or is there a common thread at all?
Yeah, I think so. What I'll say for us is that we have a lot of new teachers, and with us having a lot of and we also have a lot of new leaders, and whether that means they're in their first year in the role or second year in the role typically. And so they do not have a lot of time because their caseloads are ballooning. Like I was talking to somebody about this earlier. I was like, having worked in the same organization over the last 13 years and knowing, like when I started, I think our caseload was like 50 kids maybe on our campus. And now the same campus that I worked at 13 years ago, like I think the caseload of kids is like 100 kids, or like somewhere around like 95 to 100 kids. And so, first of all, we have more campuses, and the campuses have more kids. And so there's not a lot of time for people to do the things to actually balance compliance and instruction. But then because there's not a lot of time, they oftentimes struggle to slow down enough to be able to create the clarity or to get the clarity that they need. And so whether that means like reading the resource or watching the video or attending the call. And so the thing that I am having to like work with folks with right now is like, yes, children need their services. You will never not hear me say that. Kids need their services. And you have to learn the thing that we are putting in front of you in order to actually implement their services. You have to learn the thing that we are wanting to put in front of you in order to actually keep compliance like at the high level that it needs to be. So there are these two very important, high priority things that feel in tension. And 9 times out of 10, folks are going to choose the kids because it's like the kid is sitting right in front of me, and the kid is a person. The kid is a lot more fun to be with. Paperwork is, is not it for anybody. And it's also the piece that they are trying to like learn. It's like, how do and I will also say for us here, yes, like we have a new IEP system. And so like this school year. And so some of the clarity that they need, we actually cannot get them because you do all of the change management things that you like can do up front when you're getting a new system, and you cannot predict everything. And so some of the gaps in like user friendliness that we tried to get in front of, we were not able to get in front of. And so now we're kind of like learning things in real time with them and trying to get them solutions. And so part of the lack of clarity is simply like, it's new. And we did our best learning the system with like, the test cases and things. And like when you actually get it in play, sometimes things are different than what you practice with. And so now we're having to learn in real time and turn around those resources. That is part of the gap that we are currently experiencing, part of the tension, I'll say, that we are also currently experiencing. But yeah, for our teachers, and I would even say for our leaders, a lot of times it is time is a struggle and getting the clarity that they need is a struggle. And those things like pull on them every single day.
If you could wave a magic wand, what would you give them?
Mm. If I could wave a magic wand, I would give them how many things do I get to give them?
We'll go with 3.
Okay. If I had a magic wand, the things I would give them, I would give campuses either more teachers or more teaching assistants so that they have the staffing that they need to actually execute the services that students need with a little more ease. I would give them a built out learning management system. So with like recordings or like printed resources so that they can actually like see things more easily that are these like foundational skills that they need in order to actually either lesson plan like super effectively or update their like compliance. And I think we do a pretty good job with the lesson planning piece. And so I would say, let's build a learning management system for the compliance work. So more people, a built out learning management system, and I would make absolutely sure that everybody had a planning period that was legitimately their planning period. So that means that they are planning during this time only, not doing compliance work, not attending IEP meetings, not having to do parent phone calls. No, this is legitimately the time that you plan to be in front of kids implementing and executing instruction. So those are the 3 things that I would give them.
Love that. Listen to that clarity. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. And you're spot on with the more teachers and teacher assistants. Do you find that you have a high turnover? And it's wild too. And I feel like at least, so I grew up in the late 80s and the 90s, and I don't remember having new teachers every single year in the fact that new teachers were in the building. I could see my 3rd grade teacher. I could see my 4th grade teacher. They were still there when I was in 7th and 8th grade. And now it really seems like there's a very high turnover, whether people are leaving the field or going to a different district or whatever the case may be. And that just is equally as heartbreaking because kids attach to their
Yes.
teachers.
We definitely are seeing the same trend here at Yes Prep. And what I will also say though is that we are working diligently to solve for that trend with increased like teacher starting pay. We have the teacher incentive allotment down here in Texas, which is actually incentivizing like student growth. So if the students that are assigned to you are demonstrating the growth that they need to demonstrate on their like in their academics, then you get a bonus for that. You get paid for that and you get extra titles and like credentials and like stipends for that. And so there's like that piece as well, but also the pay, but certification. And so certification, what I will say right now when it comes particular to special education teachers, like certification, being able to pass the CERT test is the thing that we are currently working to solve for. In our alternative certification program, that team is doing a phenomenal job in figuring out how to actually solve for those gaps so that teachers actually can sit for pass the cert test like within that first year and then they get to stay because what we have realized is like the teachers want to stay. Like not only do the kids want them to be there, the teachers want to stay. And because of what certification requirements are, especially related to special education, like you have to be able to pass those exams. And so they are retooling and revising their programming and like support of our novice teachers so that they have the support to not only learn the things they need to learn to be effective in the classroom, but also learn the things they need to learn, even if it's like study skills, to be able to actually pass the certification test so that then they stay, and we are able to continue to shore up the instructional settings for our kids so that we are able to keep moving at the pace that we are moving in order to ensure that all of our kids have access to all 8 schools. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Oh my gosh, spot on with that, especially because as a speech pathologist, we're cross licensed, but even to not the CEU piece, but to keep up with them and keep up with the certifications, it really is a financial piece that goes into it. And you're thinking, people need help. I can't get into the state. I've been on a licensing list for 2 years just to get licensed in that state. I'm already certain, I've already got the degree, but just to get
Yeah.
into that state, it's wild. And you're like, there are people that need services for sure. Okay, my final question. If you could leave the staff or the teachers and the special education leaders with one mindset shift, what would it be?
I think the one thing that I have coached myself on and that I have coached people on in one way, shape, form, or fashion is that there is more within your locus of control than you realize. And so, agency, yeah, is like you have a choice here. You cannot do everything, but you have a choice here. And so, getting clear on what is actually within your locus of control and then pushing and pulling on those levers, and then if you believe in God, leaving the rest up to God, do your part and then leave the rest up to Him, and it will work out either today or eventually. So do what's within your control to do.
Definitely. Oh gosh, gotta get you a bumper sticker or something on that one. Thank you. It's a good one. It really is.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you so much for spending time with us. Absolutely lovely speaking with you. And I definitely have golden nuggets. I have no doubt that our listeners have golden nuggets as well. We will leave your contact information in the show notes. And thank you so, so much to you, Autriel, and to our listeners for spending time with us here today. If you have questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below or reach out to us. And until next time, everyone, thank you and stay well.
Thank you.